Good evening, everybody. I wanted to give you my quick analysis of the Apple daily chart. So this is kind of looking ahead, maybe in the next couple of days or even weeks. And keep in mind, this is just my opinion. So obviously we all interpret charts differently. But I have in front of me the Apple daily chart. And as you can see, in the last couple of weeks, Apple has actually been doing pretty well, and a lot of that has been catalyzed by the earnings, which I believe were last week. Now the earnings were sort of a non-event. They didn't really report anything significant, and when you're a technical trader like me, you really don't care that much for the earnings. But for the retail investors or buyers, people who just basically throw their money at these charts without really doing enough research, they kind of tend to go for these news. And so, whatever we may say about technical analysis being the most important thing in trading, keep in mind there are still people out there who put their money, based on news, and these news drive a stock up like it has here. Now, in my opinion, Apple looks like it might be putting in a short-term top. Okay, and just looking at the technicals, well, first of all, we've had 3 green candles, okay, very powerful candles, but they were on low volume, okay, so that tends to be kind of a bearish signal. The next part that I can show you are a couple of trend lines. So let me just zoom out a little bit, and I want to show you Apple in terms of a kind of a longer term event. Okay, so let's draw a couple of trend lines here. So here's one right here. Here's a really good gap, and this is going to be a very powerful resistance line. Then here you get a gap fill, then another gap right around here. But you get the point, so I'm not going to go any further because I doubt that Apple's going to get to 600 anytime soon. Okay. Now, there is also a Fibonacci level that I want to talk about. So let me just use my Fibonacci tool. So Fibonacci's, if you're not familiar, you take them from a very top to a bottom. So you basically draw your line from a top, which would have been this infamous 700 level where everybody was buying. And then, let me just see here real quick. You just basically go down a little bit more. And I got it right here. I like this level. Okay, where it was just basically lingering back in 2009 around $80. Okay, so Fibonacci levels or any other technical analysis tools that you use, the further back you have to go in time, the more significant it is. And so since we're taking this level all the way back to 2008, 2009, we can therefore assume or infer that this Fibonacci retrace here must be something to take seriously. And so usually the 618 levels are the ones you want to look at. Not always, but they're pretty good levels. And so if I zoom in and try to apply this to this week or the short term, you will see that the 618 level is around $466. Now it's going to be a couple of dollars up or down because I didn't really look at it in detail, but around this level, this green line, very good level. And then let's look at the lines I just drew before that, which are the purple lines, just the straight lines. So this 618 coincides with this top right here. And you also have this level around 470, and then a really good level around 485. But what's most significant is that you also have this 200 moving average, which is in red. So it seems like we have a lot of resistance levels that are coming up on Apple. We have the 618, We have these horizontal trend lines. We have a gap um, right here along with the top. Then you have the 200 MA sloping down. Okay. And meanwhile, Apple has been going up on a low volume. Okay. And so this to me basically tells me that Apple is exhausted. It's coming into resistance levels. And if you kind of put it into context of, the whole year, you will notice, so if we look at the year, let's see here, zoom out a little bit, or zoom in rather. But in the context of the year, so the year started here. Okay, this would have been your January 1st or so. So you notice how it's been declining the entire year. Now remember, after it passed this 50 moving average, which is blue, a lot of people were cheering, oh, Apple passed the 50 moving average, and it shot back down, which is very common. You see, after somebody cheers a company a lot, it tends to go down a lot. And then finally, it caught a breather again and started going back up, and it maintained above the 50 MA, slowly went down again. So it's kind of going around this 50 MA, up or down a little bit. But if you take it in terms of the whole year, Apple's kind of just been chopping sideways, just basically kind of following these lower MAs, but not really doing much. So it did pretty well at the beginning of the year when we started. It was at 550, but ever since then it's been declining, declining, declining. It seemed to have bounced off here, so that would have been a good level to buy. But now we're kind of in a neutral stance where we're not necessarily declining, we're not necessarily going up, we're rather going sideways. And so my question would be, is Apple going to prefer to go sideways the rest of the year? And so it would make sense, based on these waves here, based on these patterns, based on the fact that it's been pretty much following these two MAs, it would make sense that it goes sideways. Okay? And it would be within this range of this 618, this 466, give or take, maybe up to 485. But then the 200 MA you have to take into account, because Apple has not gotten above the 200 MA. The last time it was above the 200 MA was in November of last year. So that's very alarming. That overall is very bearish. So, the worst that can happen, in my opinion, is that Apple gets reflected off of these levels and goes down. The best that can happen is we continue going sideways. Now, the only way that Apple could go up is the time of year. Okay? So, now all of a sudden, we maybe could see upside in Apple because, number one, we're getting into August. August traditionally is a light volume month, and during August, generally we have these retail buyers coming in and buying things as opposed to sellers selling things. Now, secondly, we're coming into the 1st of August, and generally the 1st of August when we get new money coming in, in terms of 401ks, all these, different things being invested, on a larger kind of scale. So we kind of have two reasons why we might see a little bit of upside. But then again, think about the market overall. It's at all-time highs. So if Apple wants to go up, well, guess what? The market that's already at the all-time highs is going to go up as well. And so now all of a sudden we find ourselves in a situation where all of the above apply. So technically, Apple doesn't look all that great. Technically, it looks like it should be going down, okay? And if nothing else, just basically chopping sideways because it's been in a range. But then again, looking at the time of year that we're in and the fact that we're approaching the 1st of the month, in the near term, what I'm thinking is we might see a little bit of upside in Apple. Okay, so watch Apple in the next couple of days. see how it comes into these levels. So I'm thinking that maybe by the end of this week and maybe into next week, Apple might start playing around with this 200 MA. It might get above this 618 right here, which is this green line, and then see how we come into the first of the month. See if that will be a catalyst for Apple to go up, and then see what happens after the first of the month. What will happen, on the second, third, fourth, and so forth. I don't really know when the weekend falls, but you know what I mean. So just look at what happens during the market days after the first of the month, and you also have to continue watching the rest of August, because again, for the most part, August is a bullish month. And and if you do decide to short Apple, keep your stops tight, because if Apple gets above this 200 MA, it's not really going to have anything in its resistance. Okay, all the way up to 500, 515.